But one farmer says, seems to me there was a tea party in Boston that was illegal too.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold.
We shall seek to establish and maintain a dollar which will not change its purchasing and debt-paying power during the succeeding generation.
As anguished shrieks rose up from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
Government credit and government currency are really one and the same thing. A reserve of gold and a small reserve of silver.
Why do central banks hold it?
Well, it's a form of reserves.
Why don't they hold diamonds?
Well, it's tradition, long-term tradition.
Well, some people still think it's money.
I saw this headline. Could you get PTSD from your pandemic experience? The long-term mental health effects of the situation, the unnamed situation, and a picture of a sad lady looking out a window of the rain. It immediately reminded me of this picture of poor Kermit, which has been used so many times in some classic memes. You can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. These memes that I saw earlier regarding in a joking way, referring to people suffering from the current crisis, were done in a joke. And then here we are, we're seeing real headlines where it's discussed. Because that's the state of fragility of your average, I don't even know what generation. I'm sure it spans all of them, from the boomers to the doomers to the XYZs, millennials, and Zoomers, and everyone in between. It seems like every single generation there's a part of them, or some of them, that are, a little bit more fragile than they should be. When you look back on history, and let's go back to the 20th century. What took place then? 220 million dead at the hands of government, multiple world wars, the Cold War, all kinds of things, making kids hide under desks as bomb sirens went off, everyone thinking that at any time there was going to be a nuclear attack. I wonder if during the Bay of Pigs, or any of the Cold War crisis, if toilet paper disappeared and Americans lost it the way they've lost it with this situation, which really isn't that bad. You know, there's been a couple disruptions. The economy dipped 30%, but, I mean, come on now. We all know that it's not that big a deal if you're actually paying attention and know what's really going on. It was orchestrated. It was smoke and mirrors. It was a show. It's just theater. It's drama. And a lot of it was just media hype. Unfortunately, people get caught in the crosshairs. Idiots. The people that spend so much time, as we've talked about, watching Dancing with the Stars, The Voice, all their reality shows, the Kardashians. They watch their football. Maybe they watch their hockey. Hey, nothing against that. If you like to watch sports, go for it. Whatever. But your average, typical, run-of-the-mill, booger-eating, window-licking, Kool-Aid drinking moron chip, they don't have the capacity or fortitude to think through what's actually taking place, to incorporate any logic or reason. And it's a major disruption in their little world. It throws their thought process off. These are people that are constantly expecting to be entertained and titillated, very pretentious, entitled. We live in a welfare warfare state where everybody's on some form of welfare. Well, now we all are. Everyone's getting $1,200 checks, $500 checks, $1,000. Everyone's getting money, helicopter money from the government. If anything, there shouldn't be any PTSD. People should be, out celebrating, buying their 40s and new spinner rims for their cars. Unfortunately, we're going to probably have to deal with this for a couple of years. There's going to be some government benefit that you can apply for mental health evaluation and therapy to discuss that time you went to Costco and you couldn't find toilet paper and a 75-year-old woman pushed you out of the way because you were closing in on her social distancing too much. I don't know. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'm going to summarize it saying, weak sauce, you're a bunch of weak. It's pathetic. It really is. If you need therapy from this, if you're staring out a window with a melancholy look on your face because you're scared of the situation we just went through, you need to go look at what people went through before you. Maybe go read some books, unplug from the television for a little while. I mean, really, how bad has quarantine been for most people? A lot of them, it hasn't been a change at all. I mean, I look around and I see a society where most people wear pajamas when they go out in public. Have you ever been to a Walmart? Most people there are in pajamas. So quarantine for most Americans who don't work anyway and sleep in till 11, I don't think it was that big a deal. Most of them sit around eating snacks, wearing pajamas, and watching television. That's your average American's day-to-day operation. So in that case, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And if you need PTSD therapy and you need to talk to someone because you were forced to stay home, watch your favorite shows, play some video games, and put things in the microwave, you don't know what hardship is. You might want to try a gulag sometime or have your city firebombed in the middle of the night. There's a couple of things you could experience that might put into perspective that which you went through compared to that which people went through in the century preceding this one. That's all I have to say about that. Let's move on to some other stories. We saw the situation in Lansing, Michigan. We covered that. I applauded them. And now it is erupting state by state. People are done with it. They've had it up to here. They're sick of it. They want to go back to work. Even some of the big popular states, or more populated states, I should say. We had a lot of crybabies and whiners swing by the comments on that last video where we talked about Lansing, Michigan. A lot of them saying how they knew someone who passed away from this. Well, I knew a guy that got ran over by a steamroller the other day, crushed, and he died from COVID. It was very unfortunate. Another friend of mine, he was struck by lightning just about a week and a half ago, and turns out he died from COVID too. A lot of people are dying of COVID, it seems, these days. A lot of death certificates are saying they died of COVID. That's unfortunate. Very lethal illness, I guess. Unfortunately, it's 1/10,000% of Americans so far have died from it. That's the actual percentage when you look at the population of the country and the number of fatalities. It's not as bad as people think. As a matter of fact, in many states, more people, like I said it as a joke, but it's true, more people have died falling off of step ladders since the discovery of the virus than have died from this virus itself. So don't get too spun up and wound up. You don't want to end up like that girl staring out the window, all morose and melancholy and sad because of the news and because of this situation. Come on now. Don't let it control you that way. Grip it up. Things are going to get a lot worse before they get better in this world one day. You have to deal with a real crisis. Heaven forbid you have to deal with a real crisis if you think this was something. Please. You're embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing all of us. You're embarrassing your grandparents. Come on now. Believing everything? What, do you believe everything the media tells you? Every single thing you see on television, you believe it. You just eat it up with a spoon. You just pour that in a bowl like cereal and just dive right in and swallow it up. Every last little Cheerio of a lie. Come on, please. They love this. CNN loves this. Come on, you've seen them when there's a hurricane or a tornado, anything. Anytime there's unrest, anytime there's a problem. I mean, come on. Give it a rest. These people protesting want to go back to work. Let them go back to work. The situation's done, all right? It's run its course. It's over. And if anything, if we do get the virus and a bunch of people get sick from it, you know what? Oh, well. I think the economic ramifications of shutting down the entire economy of the entire world might be a little worse than 1/10,000% of people succumbing to a virus that happens to predominantly take out those over 80 and 90 years old. That's a funny one. I saw that actually. CNN did a little running story on people who have passed from this, and one of them was 95 years old. Okay, I'll take that. 95, huh? He lived 95 years. And then he got this illness and passed away from it. You sure it was the illness? Maybe, maybe not. All right, let's move on to metal news, specifically gold, as usual. Talk about this. This is my favorite season now. It's when we get into, after kind of a significant bull run period, things tend to cool off, and you get some pullbacks or corrections with metals, especially like we saw on Friday, $37.20, down 2.14%. Silver also suffering a little bit of a retreat there, falling back below 16. Again, it's around 15.30s. It fell 28 cents. It was down, I think, the day before also. Again, I don't look at them every day, but you start seeing the naysayers coming back out. The weekenders get really nervous. The people that bought in at the peak, that FOMO'd out, they get that fear of missing out, so they jump in on metals. They've never bought metals before. And then they buy it, and it dips, and they lose their cool, and then they dump everything. So they were exposed to gold and silver for a couple of hours or a couple of days. They don't get it. And then you've got the people that are the gold bears, the ones that are always calling for gold to drop. These are the same ones who have been calling for it to correct since it was $500 an ounce. The ones, the hairy dents, the ones that say it should go back to $250. And it's not going to happen. And they've been calling for it to retreat and drop from 500 to 700, from 700 to 1,000, from 1,000 to 1,200, from 1,200 to 13 to 14 to 15. And it just never happens, but they keep doing it. So every time we see a slight pause or correction, they pounce on it, like piranhas on a raw chicken. And it's expected. You don't want to let it, I think some people, for me, it's nothing. Doesn't faze me, honestly. I know where metals are going. I know their story. I know their role and the history of both gold and silver. So it doesn't even faze me. I mean, I could literally unplug from the internet in perpetuity. Never look at the prices reflected in paper and on the comics and on any of the financial networks ever again. And I would still buy metal for whatever it is, hold it, not have to read a single article, completely disconnect, shut the channel down, and it wouldn't faze me. Metals would be accumulated, and that's it. I know some people, it's not that way. They need to be motivated, or maybe they just, they're the weak hands. I know people that they buy metals, and as soon as there's slight corrections take place, or it looks like troubled waters, or they're not going to make an instant buck, they panic. They lose it. And again, that's when you don't want to incorporate a couple of things into wealth management or investing, and that is one, emotion. Emotion is not a good thing to have. Or hesitation, the whole thing about hesitating to get into a position in metals can be detrimental for some people. You obviously want to put thought into the decisions you make. But again, corrections like this, I've already seen a couple of articles out there. Believe me, they're out there. I'm not even going to give them the pleasure of being featured, so we're not going to even discuss them. There is an article I want to talk about, though, that was brought to my attention, and I remember covering this a while back. But we're going to revisit a story about a billionaire who put 50% of his wealth into gold. Now, I might get his name wrong, Naguib Sawiris, I can't pronounce it. I apologize, my friend. Egyptian billionaire, he took action. This is from April 30th, 2018. He put half of his $5.7 billion in net worth into gold. And there was an article on Bloomberg about that. You can go read. The point of this, though, is there was a skeptic that I discovered in reading some more about this individual. And I wanted to just point it out because I think it's kind of funny. Let's go take a look. We're not going to look at the whole article that Barry wrote. This is from Barry Ritholtz from Bloomberg also. And, I don't know what Barry's accomplishments are in life other than he writes for Bloomberg. He probably went to school someplace, probably lives in a little apartment, has a dog, maybe a cat. He probably goes out every once in a while. He's probably got a couple failed relationships. I don't know Barry's backstory. He might be stunted in some places and ways. I don't know. I think it's hilarious, though, that as a likely underaccomplished, not very wealthy writer, he's saying that this $5.7 billion worth individual might be making a mistake. Maybe he shouldn't do what he's doing. He's concentrating in a single asset class. Oh, no, it didn't say all. It said half, Barry. Half of 5.7 billion. He didn't say that he put all of it or 100%. It's half. And I'm pretty sure that if he has, well, let's just call it 2.5 billion, maybe 2.8 billion dollars in gold and the other 2.8 billion in other things, he's going to be okay. Number one, the gold's never going to go to zero. Ever. Likely it's only going to go up. And we're going to look at a chart about gold in just a minute that's going to really prove a good point here. I wouldn't worry about billionaires. Chances are this individual became a billionaire by making good choices that not everybody else made. You see, the thing about being a billionaire oftentimes is if it was easy, everybody would do it. And they made their wealth by doing what very, very, very few people do. You can put all your eggs in a basket, but you got to make sure you watch that basket. Look that quote up. There's nothing wrong with not diversifying. Why would you diversify and put some of your wealth into areas that are toxic and most likely going to fail when you can point out and find areas that will be more successful, have a higher probability of success, and then put your wealth there? That is what our friend, we'll call him Nagiri, is doing here. He's putting his wealth in a place that he is confident in. I know he doesn't watch this channel. I highly doubt it. If you are, sir, please comment below. It would be wonderful. But I can assure you we have nothing to offer him. No wisdom. There was no advice to be found here. The guy's a billionaire because he knows what's up, knows what he is doing. And I'm not saying every single billionaire accomplished their wealth through honest means. I mean, there could be nefarious things involved. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not going to get into that on this. However, there are times when people become billionaires. They made very strategic and tactical moves with their wealth, and therefore they are successful, and we are not. Him putting 50% of his wealth into gold, I will not criticize him. And as a matter of fact, hindsight, this is back in 2018, he's up over 40% or so since then. He missed the huge correction in the world markets that just took place with this outbreak and this situation. So as a matter of fact, he did exceptionally well. As a matter of fact, he hit the nail on the head. He did superb, as a matter of fact. I don't think we should have corrected him at all. I think if he had heeded the warning from this guy Barry, he might have lost a significant amount of wealth. If you have billions and billions of dollars exposed into the equity markets of the world, and you had left them in there in 2018 till now, well, you would have lost in excess of 30% of your worth. Like that. Instead, he's up 40%. So I think he made the right choice. Let's see what Naguib said. Some big investors saw warning signs ahead for markets, and this is back in 2018, but are holding their positions. Egyptian billionaire Naguib Sawiri is taking action. He's put half of his 5.7 billion net worth into gold. He said in an interview Monday that he believes gold prices will rally further, reaching $1,800 per ounce from just above the $1,300 now, while overvalued stock markets crash. Naguib was 100% accurate and correct, and I am sure he's smiling even bigger than he was in the last photo we saw of him. The stock markets crashed. Gold has surpassed $1,700 already. It is reaching 18. It will go there. It will most likely surpass 2,000, and it's on its way to 3,000 easily. So Naguib not only prevented his losses in the markets, but he gained significant wealth and preservation of his dynastic wealth by his position in gold. I am sure many billionaires around the world are wishing at this moment in time they had done what Naguib did and put 50%, yes, 50, half of their worth into gold. Now imagine if every billionaire in the world decided to do that. Imagine if that became the norm. In the fall, we actually were talking about this. If you remember, we saw a trend taking place, and that was the vaulting of physical bullion. We saw gold being privately vaulted, no longer held in paper form, by the elite, by the very wealthy on this planet. And we did a story on that. And that's a theme that I think we're going to see continue going forward. And a lot of light was placed upon that, a lot of emphasis on taking physical in these last few weeks. I think that's going to change the environment. I think it's going to change the pattern that we see in how gold is viewed by the wealthy and by the elite. I think physical is going to be a lot more in demand, and there's going to be a lot more demand for delivery. So the COMEX boys should be a little bit worried. Those of us, the peasant class, you, me, essentially every single person here in the comments, we probably are going to have a little bit harder time getting physical, and I think the premiums are going to be up a little bit and be maintained going forward for some time. I think we're going to have to expect to pay higher seigniorage charges on coin and a little bit more than we're used to when it comes to that spread between the paper price known as spot and what we are expected to pay for actual physical bullion. Now, the main article that was criticizing this move by Naguib, written by Barry, it's full of your typical financial advisor mumbo jumbo hogwash, the stuff that they're told to repeat to try to steer people away from precious metals or limit their exposure. Oh, you should just have 10%. You know, the same old routine. Oh, you want some small cap, some mid cap, some large cap. You know, you should get some bonds, some treasuries. Oh, how about this? And they just kind of sell you a package of bullshit and a big just steaming hot pile of crap. The place that pensions go to die. Things that nobody else really wants, and they just sell them to you because you don't know any better. Well, Naguib is a billionaire. He's not like your typical person on the street that's going in and wants to feel like a somebody so they get some exposure in the markets. He knows what he's doing, and he's preserving his wealth. Now, here's the stuff that Barry wrote, and he tries to write a bunch of things to try to correct Naguib on why he shouldn't put his wealth into gold this way. Well, Barry's wrong, number one. He was proven entirely wrong because we're in the future now, looking back at the article. This is 2 years ago. And we can correct Barry and say, Barry, in the past, you're wrong. Naguib did a really smart thing. He made out quite well, actually. If he had listened to you, he would have lost a significant amount of his wealth. But that's why he's a billionaire, and that's why you write for Bloomberg. Well, let's read a couple of things that he says here and just pick it apart. Concentrated positions. Recall our recent discussions regarding General Electric, employees having too much exposure in one stock. It's no different for any asset class. Concentrated positions hold lots of upside potential as well as lots of downside risk. Well, gold's not a stock. Number one, it can never go to zero. It's the ultimate money, the ultimate extinguisher of debt. It's been around for 10,000 years. GE stock's not been around for 10,000 years. I'm sorry, Barry. It just hasn't. And you can't treat them the same, especially if you're preparing for tremendous downside risk, which is the economy imploding. You can have a concentrated position. Again, like I said earlier, you can have all your eggs in one basket. You better know that basket. You better watch that basket. If you've done the right research, you have the right information, you're good to go. Investment forecasting. This is the one point that Barry makes that I really want to harp on. And he goes, inherent in this concentrated bet is a forecast. At some point, in the not too distant future, gold will be X% higher. Wait till we look at the chart, Barry. That may or may not come to pass. However, market history teaches us that making bets based on forecasts is an unrewarding way to deploy capital. That is what every single investment is a bet on the future. So I don't understand that statement at all. Market history teaches us that making bets based on forecasts is an unrewarding way to deploy capital. Literally, that is all CNBC and every financial outlet does is forecast things. It's like watching the weather. And that's what they do. And if anything, they're always betting that the future will be more productive than the present. That's what credit is. That's why there's loans. That's why people borrow money. That's why there's investment to begin with. You're investing believing that a company A is going to be more productive and generate a profit and a dividend of some kind to reward you, the investor. You're betting and forecasting on productivity. Well, guess what? I don't believe that's the case. And I think Naguib and many other people realize the king has no clothes. Things are not going to be as productive. We've probably seen the best of times. There's a major contraction and reset coming, and we're going to invest from that perspective. Okay? So yeah, we're forecasting that it's not going to be as good as you think it is. And that's why we're getting gold and getting silver. among other things like currency devaluation, the increase of the money supply, the Fed activity, inflation, hyperinflation. There's a lot of variables here to discuss. We as a species simply lack the ability to see what the future will hold. Yeah, that's very true. Humans are terrible at making investments based on those sorts of guesses. Okay. So why would you invest in anything then? It's all forecast. It's all a bet. Everything's a bet. It just so happens that gold's typically a sure bet. You're not going to lose anything. You might not make an 11,000% run. You're not going to, double or triple in a week, maybe. I mean, who knows these days? Gold might do some surprising things soon enough. Point is, we'll just stop right there because I don't want to read any more of this article. I got to move on. I got to end it. You got this writer from Bloomberg trying to tell a billionaire not to put half his wealth into gold 2 years ago, thinking it's not a good idea. Turns out it was probably the best thing he ever did. As a matter of fact, he probably should have put 100% of his wealth, or 90%. He could have kept maybe, 500 million out to play with. I don't know if he could get by on that for a couple of years, but, if he put the other 4.5 or 5, even 5 billion into gold back then, it'd be pretty nice little stack, I'd imagine. All right, so I don't know what Barry did. I'm sure Barry, this writer for Bloomberg, probably doesn't have a lot of gold or silver. He probably talks smack about it all the time. I'll have to look him up, see if he's got any other articles out there slamming gold, because it's always fun to find somebody that tries to pick apart, a move into gold or a position in gold. It's amazing the attention and the emotion that gold can get out of people. But just to close, I want to show you a chart real quick. Please don't get bored with it. I know we use this chart quite a bit, but take a look here. This is recent, but you've seen it before, and it changes every day. Every day the trading's open anyways, because the percentages and the values of gold change. But again, this is gold price performance percentage annual change, and it's in various currencies. Let's go to the US dollar column, and we're going to pretend that we are Naguib. So in 2018, that was one of the down years. Remember, there's only 4 down years in the last 15 for gold. Going back to 2005, only 4 down years. And they're not down that much. As a matter of fact, if you add up all the down years, all 4 of the down years for gold in the last 15 years, they total 42.3%. That's all 4 down years added up. 42.3% in the last 15 years in the red. However, if you add up all the green years, the up years, that's 203.9%. We'll call it 204% for gold since 2005. Since Naguib made his move into gold in 2018, it's moved 31.7% in the green. Upside plus 31.7% with that 50% exposure. Now, if you include the markets dropping over 30%, well, that's a 60% spread he saved in his wealth preservation by making this move. And if you look at the average there, the average for gold, and I'm sure Naguib is very aware of this, the average year on year on year is about 10%. It fluctuates anywhere from 9 to 10% with current performances and what's been taking place in the gold world. Now, this is just, again, the paper gold price. And it's going to continue. It's a trend we will see continue. And I'm sure Naguib knows what's going on and has seen the writing on the wall. It's not something that's going to change. If anything, it's going to increase in its ferocity of the upside for gold. We've seen incredible stimulus in money printing, incredible manipulations and suppressions of the interest rate to zero. And the central banks of the world have committed to injecting fiat money into the system to try to make it work. We've covered this at length for nearly a decade here, and we know the story, we know where it ends up. We've seen this script before, we've read this chapter before. And this is just the way it is. So Naguib, if you're out there, strong work. You're a hero and a titan. We all look up to you and respect you for the move you made. Barry, don't criticize billionaires like Naguib, especially when we know they did the right thing. Looking back on it, you have to admit it and eat crow. You were wrong. Barry, you were quite wrong. Naguib did a strategic and brilliant move, and again, that's why he's a billionaire, and that's why you write for Bloomberg, and that's why I sit here making YouTube videos in my mom's basement. Just kidding, I'm not in my mom's basement, but it's a fun saying anyways. I'm not a billionaire. I never will be, most likely. Not even most likely, I never will be. That's just the way it is. And some of you will probably say, well, that's why you'll never will be, because you don't have to. No, it's true. I'm a realist. I just know that I'm most likely not going to reach that. I think a lot of us aren't going to reach that. However, respect to those who can pull it off. It's got to be a lot of work. I just don't want to work that hard, I guess. I like being out in my garden too much. I guess you'll never become a billionaire sitting out in your garden, but I'm happy anyways, as I stare out the window like Kermit the Frog. All right, friends, viewers, subscribers, don't forget to smash that like button if you like the content here. Sorry for the weekend installment of boredom. Appreciate you all being here, supporting the channel, participating in the comments, and enjoying the extemporaneous ramblings and mispronunciations often featured here. If I was a video game, I'd be a 8-bit Nintendo cartridge. I know this isn't some high-definition first-person shooter game, but I do my best. I'm like the Excite Bike of YouTube channels, or worse, more like Tetris. I don't know. Not even that entertaining. I don't know. Someone will come up with a good analogy. I know one of you will. But take care of yourselves. Have a good rest of your day and enjoy your weekend. And remember, don't let the media get to you. Don't be afraid. Fear not, for you will prevail.